Well, look at that, we're alive. We're still alive. We haven't been abducted by aliens or hairy giants. No grizzly attacks. And we were successful. That's a good thing. But I'll tell you, it was so hard. There's no way we could have, I could have kept up throwing down some content on the channel during this hunt. We're absolutely exhausted, right? I can't believe Sarah kept up. She did it though, she did it. We got up an average 3:30 in the morning, every single morning, and we had everything ready to go, so all we had to do was get up in the morning at 3:30, I'd boil the water, make the coffee, and gone. And we'd be in the woods in our spot by probably 4:30, and then we sit in the dark and have our coffee and listen for elk bugling. Very, very tough conditions, very hot out, lots of hunters, lack of game, big time. I think I had about 10 trail cameras out at different spots to see what's up. I think I may have had 6 different elk. That's it. It is what it is. I don't know what's going on up with nature. I may have mentioned this last time, I don't remember. I'm going to talk a little louder because I forgot my microphones, alright? But one thing we noticed, like last year I harvested an elk. It was very hot out. And I had to put on my down jacket with the hood on, with the string drawn tight, with gloves on, because of how many wasps, hornets there were. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing trying to butcher that elk up. And I literally had to I got a bunch of it done, and literally tied the carcass onto the quad and dragged it farther up the road to get away from those wasps, and proceeded to carry on, and then it would just be swarmed with wasps again. It was unbelievable. Then I grabbed that nest, that perfect nest. We saw dozens of those. Sarah got stung from wasps boiling out of the ground. Come up this year, and another mention, on the trail cameras was at least one spot, just one, on the trail camera was at least 3 to 4, maybe sometimes 5 different black bears a day. Now this year, and there was a fair amount of elk last year, now this year, the wasps had absolutely disappeared. When we were butchering up the elk yesterday, I said, take note, there's not one wasp here. You know, a handful of regular flies. Not one wasp, not one black bear on the cameras. Gone. Wasps, gone. Hornets, gone. Black bears, gone. A lot of elk, gone. Really odd. Lots of deer though. And a lot of the moose that I've seen had calves. The couple elk, female elk I caught on cameras had calves. All the deer had fawns. I do not believe I had one wolf on my cameras, so whatever's going on, I haven't a clue. It's a mystery. I don't know. The rabbits, another note too is the rabbits are on a high right now. There is frickin' rabbits everywhere. Lots of grouse. So there you go. There's my report on the nature, what I take note of, especially using the cameras. Very odd. Like, we were talking yesterday, well, how do the wasps, where are they? Where's the survivors and what are they doing? You know, to build up the next population explosion. What else? I think that's about it for the odd. We did notice too, some areas we were in were absolutely dead silent. I mean, dead silent. Not a squirrel waking up. We didn't hear the birds waking up as we were in the dark and it's starting to get daylight, and it was so bizarre. That was really weird. In probably 2 different places that happened. Did we feel creeped out? Nope. Nope, didn't feel creeped out. Saw the object on my handheld thermal camera from about, I don't know how far away we recorded that object, the black heat signature on the right-of-way, which is a pipeline right-of-way. I don't know how far we were. That could have been half a mile away. Anyway, I thought it looked really odd. She thought it was a moose at first, and I'm looking through it, but it never went broadside. And then the battery died. Whatever, we had to carry on this way, and we were looking way up the right-of-way that way. I don't know what it was that moved. I just thought I'd show that I made a post about that on the YouTube posting page. That was odd. Did we go up there and look for prints? I did after the ground was absolutely rock hard. Nothing, I didn't see nothing. Whatever, it is what it is. What else? So finally yesterday, poor Sarah, I dragged her around up and down these mountains from 4:30 in the morning on. Every single day, she was a trooper. And yesterday, a nice young bull stepped out right in the road, right in the first 5 minutes seeing light, and she made a perfect shot, got her second out. So perfect, got great, awesome, the best table fare you can imagine. Made a perfect shot, and the meat's well cared for, even though it's hot out. I've got all the meat hanging up here, and it's dry and it's cool, and we're going to travel home with it and get it home and get it taken care of right away. And then I will be returning solo by myself to hunt. I found a couple of monster bulls bull out, and it's tough for me to hunt what I call properly. I've got Sarah will not, I would never leave her alone, period. But normally when you're hunting with a partner, you can say, okay, you go over here, I'll go over here. I'll drop you off here and I'll go through here. I'll go over here and you come through the forest here. Not possible. And then when I'm hunting in very thick jungle trying to get after a game animal, it's two people, twice the movement, twice the noise. Makes it twice as difficult. So I'll come back up in a week or something by myself, and I'll share the hunt on here. And that's about it. Don't really know what's going on in society right now. I know there's a whole bunch of fallout coming from the Charlie Kirk assassination, which is still quite sad to me. And it's funny, you know, when you think about it, a lot of the people who celebrate are celebrating his death, apparently, saying how he was encouraging this and encouraging that, and he's spreading hate. Well, so far, hasn't the left tried to assassinate a president, and they've successfully murdered this guy? So who's breeding what? Right? Who's creating what? Anyway, that's enough of that topic. It's getting work non-stop in society today, isn't it? I'll get caught up when I get home on current events. I did hear one thing that made me happy this morning. We turned on the generator in the Starlink, was Jimmy Kimmel got canceled. I did a little bit of a dance when I heard that one. He's not a good person, that guy. But anyway, let's get a couple of voices heard while I'm here. I miss doing this. I miss sharing everybody's voices. Now let's see what we got. I got a whole bunch, as usual. Now, where shall I start? Haven't a clue. How about this one? This is fresh out of the pan. Although all my inboxes are stacked up with unread emails. This is titled Part 2 of My Saw-Bait Experiences. Hello, Steve from beautiful West Virginia. I wrote to you 5 years ago with my experience titled, You Walked Around the Sasquatch. You read it to my surprise 3 months later on Valentine's Day 2021. I've had many encounters with these people, and none of them, except one, could I say was a frightening experience. Starting with this experience first, and also in keeping with my encounters as I remember them in order of my experiences as they happened since the first one I sent you. Second experience I had occurred in 1985. I was 21 years old then and had been married for only a year. I was deer hunting with my father-in-law on some farmland that was a very rural area. We had driven miles on a gravel road to get to it. I'd been to this place over one other time before with my father-in-law, but this time we were the only hunters there. I had a Ruger 30-06 with me and had been hunting since I was 9, so I was very accustomed to the sounds of the forest and animal life there. Anyway, my father-in-law, who we will call Mike, and I were still hunting, sitting and watching for deer along established game trail. And after a while I moved to where Mike was positioned inside a fence line that had overwatch of a field. There was a mountain laurel thicket behind us that was over 7 or 8 feet high and very dense. I wasn't in this position long before the sound of heavy snorting and grunting started on the other side of this thicket. To me, it sounded like a couple of huge bucks doing this, and I was startled by it. I never heard anything like this before as far as lung capacity. I kept thinking this has got to be Boone and Crockett-sized trophy bucks making this sound. I never could see anything through the thick foliage. Mike looked spooked by it, and I was getting that way too. Anyway, Mike got up after the sound and stopped and was heading back up the hill toward the truck. He almost left me behind before I hollered for him to wait and hold my rifle so I could cross the fence. We got out of there quickly. I was following his lead more than anything because I was still uncertain with what we were dealing with. but I think he knew. Never spoke about it once until we hit the interstate, and then it was only a question from me asking if he was upset with me for moving to his position and blowing his hunting spot. He just shook his head and said no. We never spoke of it again. Mike passed on years ago, so I couldn't ask him about it if I wanted to. Strange how that is. Next encounter happened in 1995. I lived on the back side of a trailer park. There was woods that back up to the back side of my trailer. A very steep bank was along the rear of my place, which is where my bedroom was. I had a 14 by 70 foot Holly Park trailer at that time, and my bed was situated so I could look out the 3 windows along the back of the trailer. It had a great view of the woods, and it was almost like being in a tree house because of the elevated position. Anyway, it was a warm fall night, and I had the windows cracked open to let the air into the bedroom. So I'm laying in bed looking out when 3 very tall and lanky beings walked across from left to right. Of course, the one leading was the tallest one, followed by the next tallest, and then the shortest. I took it as a family was passing in front of my windows. I could not see much detail except for their being thin. They walked in profile. They were silent as they walked, almost seemed to be gliding across my view. Let me read that again properly. They were silent as they walked, almost seemed to be gliding across my view. The ground was very dry underfoot and bare. The next day I went to investigate, and I seen where they had walked down the steepest part of the bank on the corner of it. The weeds that were pushed down showed direction of travel down the bank. I measured the height from ground to bottom of the window sill, and it was a little over 9 feet. Now, these beings were head and shoulders above that, at least the tallest one was. There are other things that happened while I lived there. One time I had something grab the doorknob as I was going to lock it one night. I just laid my hand on the doorknob when I felt something on the other side of the door had a hold of it. I counted to 3 and flung the door open. Nothing there. It didn't even set off the motion light that was aimed at the door. Not until I opened it did the light come on. I've had my trailer slapped a few times during the night while I lived there, and I always had the feeling of being watched. I would keep drapes closed at night for this reason. I later moved there after my mother passed away. The next encounter happened years after I'd moved to a townhome community some miles away from my old place. This townhome community is in a very urban neighborhood with a combination of regular homes that surround us here. Very quiet and peaceful neighborhood. Now there's some woods that back up to our neighborhood with wooden corridors and a gully that cuts through part of it just down the street from me. One early evening in August of 2014, I was out on my patio listening to a Pirates baseball game on the radio when all of a sudden I heard something coming through the heavy brush that runs along a bank just outside of my patio in the back of my house. It sounded like a large man working his way through the brush. I was very curious of who this could be, so I waited to see what would come out of that brush. The brush was so thick you couldn't see into it, especially under low light conditions. And after sitting here and watching and listening for a minute, it stopped moving. It was like it caught my scent or seen me sitting here. Anyway, it stood behind a locust tree that was only 25 feet from me. Still couldn't see it, but I could tell it was there. So after minutes, I went inside, stirred around inside my house for a moment, and when I came back out, there he was. There was a family of 4 Sabe before me. 2 adults, 2 kids. One of the little ones was on the big guy's shoulder, and the mother and the other child was laying prone position, peering over a railroad tie that borders the bank and separates it from the house that sits above and behind it. The father was motionless, as we both just looked at each other. And he was massive. I'd say 9 or 10 feet tall. It looked like they were about to move through behind my place, which is what they did after I went back inside after that. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I don't remember experiencing mind speak or anything, just the feeling that I should leave now. The encounter was only a couple of minutes in length, but it felt like much longer. I was just frozen still and looking at them. After I went back inside, I quickly went upstairs to a spare bedroom in the back that overlooked the bank where they would be passing through. The windows were open, and I crawled on all fours into the bedroom as not to be seen by them. I made it to just under the window, and was about to raise up enough to peer over the window sill when something held me back from doing it. I was frozen in fear. I could hear them as they moved by. There's a stockade fence that runs along the back of my property that separates the houses from the townhomes along there. The bank is only 8 or 9 feet wide that runs along it, and my neighbors are on the other side of the fence. My neighbors on the other side of the fence were having a get-together with friends that evening. The Sabe moved quietly along, except for a few low mumbles I heard them make to each other. It was quite an experience as it was happening. I've had interactions with these people over the years since that encounter. I've left 4 rocks out in a little pile near the edge of my patio on a retaining well. I'd find them a few days later in the classic 3/1 pattern, meaning 1 rock set aside from the other 3 that were grouped together. I'd love to know what this means from First Nations elders. My wife has also had encounters here as well. One night when I came home from work, I found her in the upstairs bathroom, terrified with the door locked. She said she had saw one on the back patio. She was waiting for me to come home before she would come out. There's a humorous incident here also. I can't say for sure that it was them that did what I'm about to relate, but here it goes. My wife had bought a little welcome sign with a turtle on it. Kind of looked like a sea turtle. Anyway, it was hanging near the back patio sliding glass door, so this one evening I had just come home from work and sitting out back talking and enjoying being home with her, when I noticed what looked like a leaf at first stuck on the screen door. Upon closer inspection, it was a baby snapping turtle. I have pictures of it. I was dumbfounded at this because never had I seen one back here, let alone on my screen door. Very, very odd place for one to end up being so far away from water source. He was muddy, like he was picked up out of a creek or a muddy bank and placed there. I don't know. But I joked about it with her in relation to the welcome sign and all. Made me chuckle to myself. I have an unrelated story about a ginormous box turtle that I found one day just off from my back patio. Called West Virginia University about it. Sorry. I called West Virginia University about it and talked to their expert about it. I sent pictures of it with yardstick for scale. And he said I may have discovered an unknown species. He was very interested in it, but I went inside my house to do something, and when I returned, he was gone. Anyway, I have more strange occurrences, but I'm not sure if they are related. I feel at times that I've been tagged by them. When my wife and I were taking care of her parents a few years ago, I found a couple of heart-shaped objects in my father-in-law's yard. One was made of grass, like it was loosely woven out of long grass, and the other one was like an imprint of one in the yard. The grass in the heart was dried out, which made the perfect imprint of a heart. I'll try to include the pictures of that with this email. And I'm sorry to say I don't have one of the large box turtle, for it was accidentally deleted from my camera years ago. I've lived at this location for over 20 years now, and I'm 61 years old. I used to hunt and fish a lot, mostly by myself. I've got a broken back and disabled now, so it's hard for me to get out there and do the things I love to do. I live vicariously through your adventures with Ruby and Sarah. I love what you're doing, Steve, and keep up the good work. Obvious to me, the good Lord picked you to get the truth out, to encourage people to not be afraid, and to get out and do the things you love. You can use my name, Pat from West Virginia. Thank you for your time, and I hope this helps someone out there. I hope it does too, Pat. Appreciate you, man. Big time. Sorry to hear about your back. That sucks. A lot. There you go. Welcome to the club, my man. Welcome to the club. Anybody else relate to that email or the area? Similar experiences? I'm quite sure, probably. More than likely, right? There's another one. Newfoundland first? Question mark. Paralleled for 8 kilometers. Ooh. Good morning, Steve. Use name IDC. What does that mean? I don't care. Darcy Bennett here. It wasn't until listening to all the stories you read out from people that I realized what was happening. So a little over 20 years ago, I was living in Newfoundland on the northern peninsula. School year was almost over, so me and a good buddy of mine decided to hitchhike to the next community called Rocky Harbor, which just so happens to be the historical Gromorn Park, for a change of scenery, etc. After spending 5 to 6 hours gallivanting around, having a beer here, a drink there, we decided to start hitchhiking back to St. Paul's. It was now close to midnight, and that, on the northern peninsula, is a horrible time to be hitchhiking. Being half snapped, we didn't care. Good thing too, because between 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. only one vehicle drove by and they didn't stop. Who would? As the lights from Rocky Harbor lit, it started to fade from the skyline. What? As the lights from Rocky Harbor started to fade from the skyline, we started to hear something paralleling us. So we were on the road. The woods didn't start until about 20 feet after the 10-foot wide ditch, so about 35 feet or so, something was walking with us. The weird thing was, and like many people have said before, when we stopped, it stopped. When we ran, it ran. When we walked, it walked. That would suck. For me, that would suck anyway, because my walks are usually a long ways through this. We both noticed this and both voiced that it was weird, really weird. We tossed a small rock or two into the woods and yelled. We were loud anyways, and it didn't help. Being tipsy probably helped in the effort of shrugging off the weirdness, and we both said it's probably just a curious caribou or moose. You could hit a caribou with rocks if you wanted to. They're not really that frightened of people, and I've never heard of any attacking people either. So now looking back, it gives me the chills. It makes the hair stand up on my arms and on the back of my neck because, well, a caribou wouldn't do that. At least not for that long. We got as far as Baker's Brook and sat on the picnic table, a little rest area type thing, but... What? A little rest area type thing, but a rover. Around 4:30 a.m., a lobster fisherman was on his way to his wharf, so we got home anyway, LOL. Not that intriguing or even a puzzle filler happening, but nonetheless another situation to add to the list. I've yet to hear any stories from Newfoundland. I've seen a Wigglottamooch. Not sure of the correct spelling because it's a Mi'kmaq word, but it's a little woods person. It's a little woods person. When a child is well, it smiled, giggled at me, and ran off like it wanted me to chase it, but it freaked me out too bad. I ran the other direction. What the hell? What did that look like? That's crazy. Take care, man, and God bless you and yours. All right. And there's a little add-on here. Also, BFRO Deegan's making threats. Mike's friend, Dwayne, landowner, this started saying it was a hoax about the Sasquatch they've been interacting with because BFRO started harassing him, and they, BFRO, were giving Dwayne's property address out to randos. Vid info. After many years of patiently waiting for Dwayne to share his reasoning behind him calling the situation a hoax, he shares why as we sit down during a recent video. Quick watch. Alright, that's random. No internet right here. I'll check it out. I appreciate that email, and just so you know, yeah, we've got people that have emailed in from Newfoundland about having experiences with these hairy people. And orbs. Bright lights, whatever you want to call them. Bright round lights that seem to think and maneuver with intent. That's a long time to get paralleled. That would really, really suck, whatever it was. And it's happened to so many people. I'll read one more, then we're going to pack up and start driving for 2 days. What? Oh, this is a book. Well, no. I'm going in. I'm going to do it. Fresh out of the pan. Here we go. Bizarre encounter / attack with a hairy creature in Mexico, September 14th, 2025. It's the title of this email. Hola, Steve. This is my second time writing in. You can share my name with the world once again. And just a heads up, this one's probably going to be a little long. My name is Eric Solis. Before I get started, I want to thank everyone who has written in over the years and shared their knowledge and experiences. A little windy. Hope it's not wrecking the microphone, you guys. The Hat Hunt family is amazing, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I would not be here where I am today on my journey without all of you who have so generously donated your time to sharing your knowledge and experiences with myself and the rest of the world. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. And oh yeah, you're pretty cool too, Steve. Ha ha ha. Just messing with you. I know you've been thanked over and over, and I second every one of those messages thanking you. That being said, my message to you, Steve, is this. Your relentless and consistency is inspirational, and no matter what happens, never stop sharing the truth. Also, thank you for reminding us to take the time to do what we love. Thank you for the kind words, and it's too easy, especially with people like you here. Okay, before I share the story that was the main focus of this email, I'd like to make a correction regarding the first story that I sent to you about 2 years ago now. I realized that I made the mistake when I was interacting with people in the comments section who were asking me questions about the experience I sent in. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the people who interacted with me in the comments section. Thank you for your questions and sharing some of your own experiences. And by the way, in case anyone is curious, the video where you read mine and my family's experience is titled 08/02/2023 New Eyewitnesses Come Forward with Sasquatch Sightings, live feed. It's the first story you read in that video, and it starts at about the 4:15 mark. The email I sent was titled Strange Lights Coming Through the Window and Something Running on the Roof. In that email I said that these multicolored lights were coming through a stained glass window in our living room. But that was a mistake. A person in the comment section pointed out that if it was stained glass window, then maybe seeing multicolored lights coming through the window wasn't so weird. So I went online and looked at pictures of stained glass windows, and I realized that I had made a mistake. For the record, the window we saw the lights coming through had a yellowish tint, and it was not a stained glass window, like in a church or something like that. I don't know why I said stained glass window. That's been bugging me for the past 2 years, and I wanted to set that straight. All right, man. Share it. Now the experience that I'm going to share is a second-hand story. When I met my lady friend about a year ago, we started exchanging stories about things involving high strangeness that have happened to us. We hit it off immediately because we both had an interest in the strange and paranormal. Well, soon after we met, she told me a story about an experience her grandfather had in Mexico when he was a younger man. Before I share the story, I want to make it clear that I have never met this man in person, so he did not tell me the story face to face. However, I did prepare questions for my lady friend to ask him, so I can get as much detail as possible and fill in some gaps / parts of the story that I felt were important but were missing. You'll see what I meant in a bit when I begin telling the story. So this past New Year's Eve, when they got together as a family, she asked him the questions I prepared and recorded the audio for me. I listened to the audio recording, but her grandfather told the story in Spanish, so I have to have her clarify for me because I don't fully understand Spanish. I need a translation to make sure I got the details right, so I now have the story with all the details he can recall. He's now 84 years old, but he still likes to share this story whenever asked about it, from what I've been told. And just for the record, from what my lady friend tells me, her grandfather's been telling this story since she can remember, and apparently he was telling it before she was born. From what I gathered through my questioning, her grandfather truly experienced everything I'm about to share. And as for the record, I have permission to share everything with you all. So here we go. My lady friend's grandfather lives here in Southern California, and his name is Abelardo Sanchez. His experience took place in Guanajuato, Mexico. It's a state in central Mexico. It looks very mountainous from the pictures I've seen, but here's the thing. From what I gather, this encounter did not happen out in the middle of nowhere or out in the sticks somewhere. This happened in a populated area, possibly on the outskirts of town. But that might even be a stretch. I don't know the exact year because he doesn't remember. This happened to him before he was married and had a family and moved to the US. He's either in his early 20s or younger, so me and my lady friend figured that it was around the late 1950s or 60s. Most likely he was in the late 1950s. With all that out of the way, here's the story. Mr. Sanchez woke up to work early in the morning, but on this particular morning he woke up extra early, around 4 a.m. or a little after. So this is an estimate because at the time, from what he says, he didn't have much of a watch. Sorry, he didn't have a watch. He started walking to work like he did every morning along the same route. And as he was walking, he came up to a marketplace of some kind because he said it was a place where people buy and sell things. As he got closer to this marketplace, he noticed someone sitting in front of this marketplace area. But that was not out of ordinary, as people would line up out front early in the morning waiting to go in, so he didn't even pay attention to this person sitting there. He says this figure was sitting on the floor up against the wall. And next thing he knows, as he's walking by, this person/figure jumps up and swings at him. But in this moment he realizes it's not a person. It's a tall, hairy creature. According to Mr. Sanchez, it took a swing at him, but it didn't make contact. He somehow dodged it, or whatever it was that attacked. Wasn't trying to make contact. Who knows? He said it was tall and hairy and it had an ugly face. He said it was the devil. He turned and ran down the block into a small police station/booth that was close by. There were two police officers in there. He told them what had happened, and one of them said, "Let's go see. Show me where this happened." He told the police officer, "After you." He recalls saying this to the police officer because he remembers thinking, "You're the one with the gun and flashlight." And this is where the story goes from crazy to just straight up bizarre and mind-blowing. But this is also where there's a gap in the story, and you'll see why right now. To continue, the next thing he recalls is himself and the police officer seeing the creature behind a fence in the train yard. He then says that the creature disappeared into a pea-rule tree. A pea-rule tree that was in the train yard. Pea-rule is the Spanish name for a pepper tree. One of the questions that I had my lady friend ask him was, did it disappear when it got under the tree, or did it disappear into the tree itself? Mr. Sanchez said it disappeared into the pepper tree itself. Is that wild or what? That's pretty wild, and unfortunately it's a pattern reported from all over the frickin' planet. Okay, so the gap in the story I'm referring to happens between the time when Mr. Sanchez and the police officer are going back to the scene of the attempted assault by this creature, and when they see it disappear into the pepper tree. I asked my lady friend to ask Mr. Sanchez what happened between that time. Did he see the creature jump over the fence into the train yard? How did it get over the fence? Did they chase it over the fence? Did they just happen to see it on the other side of the fence? Unfortunately, Mr. Sanchez says he doesn't recall. He just remembers seeing it disappear into the tree, which I think would leave a lasting impression in anyone's mind, right? Big time. So that's the story. But check this out. Mr. Sanchez says he remembers the police officer telling him the following: "You're not the only one to see that." So that means obviously that other people in that area encountered this tall, hairy being and reported it to the police. Again, this did not happen out in the countryside or in the middle of nowhere. One of the questions I had my lady friend ask her grandfather was, where did this happen? Was it out in the countryside or in the wilderness? He said there were fabricas in the area. Fabrica is the Spanish word for factory. So from that I take it this might have been in an industrial area. Also, I believe this is likely because there was a train yard there, but there was also a marketplace, which again is where the encounter/attack took place. So this might have been out in the outskirts of the city, but it was by no means out in the countryside somewhere. And just so everyone knows, yes, I did ask if there were any smells, or if it made any noises, but I don't think there were any noticeable smells. And I don't think it made any sounds because Mr. Sanchez doesn't recall. After hearing thousands of encounters from your channel, I would say most people seem to recall those details from their encounters. Now, what's the takeaway from this encounter? Well, judging from the description of the creature, I'm going to say that this was most likely a Sasquatch creature. It fits the description. Tall and hairy. Again, he said it had an ugly face. And oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention this. Mr. Sanchez also used the word chongo to describe the creature. Chongo means monkey in Spanish. So basically, Mr. Sanchez, his perspective, he was attacked by a big monkey with an ugly face. Then he later saw it disappear into a tree on top of that. It must have been one hell of an experience, to say the least. I would say this encounter only further solidifies for me that these beings or creatures, whatever you want to call them, can't appear or manifest anywhere at any time. I've heard stories on your channel, these creatures disappearing into thin air, appearing in people's homes, and disappearing into trees. So here's another one for you all to chew on. These creatures are more than just some big elusive ape. I think at this point there's no denying that they are in some way interdimensional in nature, or at least some of them are. And that's the best way I can put it into words. Ever since me and my family had our strange experience all those years ago when I was a boy, I knew that anything can happen at any time. And this story is just a reminder that there is a lot more going on around us than we think. This point brings me to another thing I want to share. Over the past year or so, ever since I installed our Blink security cameras in front of my house, I've been picking up strange things on the cameras. I live across the street from a major American drugstore chain that everyone knows, and a lot of the activity is happening in the parking lot area and is being picked up on our cameras that face outwards into the parking area and drive-through pharmacy window that's directly across the street. All this activity seems to culminate this past July when one of the security cameras picked up one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. It's right up there with mine and my family's experience. Steve, no bullshit. Our security camera literally captured something manifesting and taking on a human form in front of the drive-through pharmacy window. The video clearly depicts an entity with two necks and two heads merging into one. It sounds crazy as shit, but it happened. My good friend was able to zoom in and slow down the video. Everyone I showed this clip to, for the most part, gets freaked out. This activity has been limited to our outside cameras, though, and I took a trip to El Dorado Nature Center in Long Beach this past July 2025, which is not far from where I live here in Whittier, California. This nature center is a very special place to me, so I go there to clear my mind, reflect, and enjoy the natural setting. I like to take pictures on my phone when I'm there. I've caught anomalies there and things in the sky over the years during my visits. So I walked in and took a few pictures at a spot where I usually stop and take pictures. It was overlooking the front pond. Well, when I got home and looked at the pictures I took at that spot, and when I zoomed all the way in on the picture to the trees across the pond, I noticed a small figure sitting under the tree. The picture's a little dark, but I was able to make out what I can only describe as a gnome or a little person. I know, again, it sounds crazy as shit, but I lightened the picture and you can clearly see it. Again, I showed my family and friends and they were like, what the F? And here's where it gets even weirder. When I went to the nature center at that time, I'd been reading a book called Dimensions by Jacques Vallée. Jacques Vallée. To sum it up, in this book, Vallée discusses how encounters with fairies, little people, and other beings over the ages parallels modern-day encounters with the occupants of UFOs in many ways. So I walked in thinking, what if I see a little person? I don't know why I had that thought at that moment. Fast forward a few hours when I got home and bam, there it was. A gnome-looking figure in one of the pictures I took. I know, it's wild, and I'm sure still trying to figure out what it all means. My good friend says that this phenomenon is trying to get my attention, and it's making itself known to me, and I agree. So right about now, the How to Hunt family is probably saying, where are the video clips and pictures? Don't be a holdout, don't be a tease. Well, I'm thinking of starting my own YouTube channel so I can post everything that I have on there. I haven't decided yet, but if I do, I haven't decided yet, but if I don't do that, I'll absolutely share them here with you, Steve, and the How to Hunt family. Thanks for reading this email, Steve. I told you it might be a long one, so what do you think about the aggressive and disappearing Sasquatch in Mexico? I'd love to hear your thoughts, Steve. Of course, I would love to hear what the How to Hunt family has to say about it in the comments. Until next time, this is Eric from Whittier, California, signing off. Godspeed. There we go. Appreciate that, Eric. I hope everybody heard. The wind's dying down. It's kind of uncomfortable yell talking. Yell reading? I feel like I'm yelling. What do I think? I wasn't there. But the disappearing into a tree is, unfortunately, why do I say it's unfortunate? Because we can't wrap our beans around it. That's why it's unfortunate. But it's a pattern. It's a pattern here, reported from people around the world. So you can either stuff your head in the sand and pretend it's make-believe, or you can trust your fellow human being. It's up to you. Take from what you will, leave it. Took a swing at him and missed him. That's a first. I don't recall hearing of any of these people trying to throw a swing at a human being yet. That might be a first for me. I don't know. We've had people thrown down on the ground for sure. We've had people tossed, thrown over fences, picked up, looked at. So anything's possible, obviously, right? But it sounds like you got a lot going on, man. Let's see what the people in the comment section say below, and maybe, who knows, I don't know, maybe somebody is from the area where that being was chased, maybe possibly chased or went through over the fence and disappeared into the tree. I don't know. We're gonna find out, right? There's a lot of people here watching all of you share your truths. But anyway, there we go. I got some voices shared. So now I got to hike up the hill here back to camp, and we're going to pack up and start our trek home in this heat, and get our supply of delicious elk meat brought home. And I hope to hear more voices being heard here. Hope to see more voices coming in the inbox. ShareMyStory@howtohunt.com, and I'll be back in the man cave shortly, and then we'll get going on pursuing and sharing more truth here, all right, you guys? So there. I'll be back shortly.